welcome to this edition of the Mize Breakroom. I'm Marc Swearengin, your host. Today, I'm joined with Diana Stahly, our advertising cooperative account manager.
You got it right.
I did get that right. There's a lot of words in there. So, runs our co-op group. So, welcome, Diana. Good to see you.
Thank you. Yes, good to see you.
So, why don't we just kind of start off with, what is this co-op thing? What is a co-op?
Right. So in the McDonald's world, there is all kinds of advertising, obviously, national and local. And so local advertising is what the advertising cooperative that Mize offers accounting services for is what we're talking about. So things that might be more related to geographic areas, specific to our area, those kinds of advertising expenses and those kinds of things.
So who are the clients? Are they own operators? Do you work with the agencies? How does, what is a group that you work with?
Right. So right now we have 10 different McDonald's advertising co-op clients. And so again, those are all geographic areas. A lot in the Midwest, some in the a little farther western states, and kind of all over the place, really, from Montana to Texas and Colorado to Missouri type areas. And we deal with a lot with these advertising agencies, work very closely with the treasurers and presidents of all of these cooperatives and kind of help them get through their annual budgeting process as they spend money with the agencies for their media placement and all those kinds of things. If they have an employee of the co-op, then our payroll department processes that payroll.
What are the services we provide them? You started talking about accounting services. What does that entail? What is the work that you and the team work on for these clients?
Right. So day to day, it's a lot of managing bill payment, managing cash flow, and collecting funds. And so that's how an advertising cooperative is funded, is essentially the monthly sales that comes from the corporation is reported to us, and using the contribution rate for each co-op, we collect those funds from each owner operator, and those funds get deposited into the co-op bank account, and then we pay bills each month from those funds.
Okay.
So whether that goes towards the media spending, the agency fees, insurance, payroll, all kinds of things. So in addition to paying bills, we also process monthly financial statements. One of the interesting things about that part is that we offer a budget variance report. So all co-ops operate on an annual budget, and their budget is pretty much prepared and agreed upon, voted upon the year before, and we try to do everything to help keep them in line with what the agency is spending and what the co-op is paying some bills themselves directly, getting expenses coded to the proper accounts, and being able to help the treasurer and reconcile with the agency throughout the year that expenses are going to where they should be going.
So doing some budget to actual type of work throughout the year to see if they're actually going to be on budget or not.
Right. Payroll services if there is an employee, and then income tax return preparation.
And you mentioned, with these co-ops and so the clients are. Do you work with everyone that's in there, or do you work with the board? How is that structured, and who, what is your day in and day out connections, I guess, with the co-ops?
Right. Primarily, we work pretty closely with the treasurer.
Okay.
And certainly any of the board members, but primarily with the treasurer, we'd be dealing with usually an account executive or two from each of the ad agencies that they deal with, or PR agencies.
Great. So it's not too much. I had this vision that you were talking to dozens and dozens of people.
Right. And actually I do it at different points. So when there is an owner operator transaction, so restaurant is getting sold from this owner operator to another owner operator, we're in touch with both the buyer and seller at some point, whether it's from their accounting team, if they aren't already Mize clients, or the owner or the seller. Sometimes we'll get information ahead of time, and which is super helpful. Instead of waiting until the monthly sales reports comes out from the corporation, then we find out that so-and-so who used to have restaurant number XYZ sold to somebody else. And then we're like, oh, well, who's this? Who's this new person? Maybe it's a brand new owner operator. And
Okay.
you have to kind of figure out, or maybe go back to the treasurer and say, hey, who's, this person? Or obviously, if it's a family name, then we can reach out to, a different owner operator in that family and verify what their entity name is. The corporation sometimes does incentives throughout the year. And so whenever there's a local incentive for that particular co-op, we'll need to know which business entity to pay for
Hmm.
those awards and that kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. We might have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like the communication with them, how do you deal with that? Is it mostly, do you go to meetings? Are you on phones with them? So how do you kind of interact and communicate with their clients, either getting the results or getting the information you need from them?
A lot of searching email. Just like anything else, we find out who works better by text, phone call, or email, and so kind of figuring that out mainly with the treasurers and the account execs, and when things are timely, just trying to figure out what the best way and
Hmm.
who responds better to the different things. Most times, if we're just seeking basic information needed for, like, a new owner operator coming into the co-op or something, we'll email them some forms and kind of do a little welcome of, here's the contribution rate, welcome to the co-op, that kind of thing. And then copy the treasurer and the president. So that way we all kind of know, hey, we're aware of this new owner operator coming into the system. And, we've told them everything we need to let them know.
Okay, great. What is their responsibility with the work we do? Like, you mentioned working with the treasurer, but what responsibilities do they have to make sure that we can get the work done? And I know you said we do a lot of bill pay, so is it like the approval process, and how does all that work?
For sure. Yeah. And that's one of the cool things, that if somebody's already a client of Mize and is familiar with our bill pay, then they already know
Yeah.
how to work our system. So it's literally just going on to the internet. As long as you've got a password and login and online access, then you're in.
Okay.
So it's obviously a different password than what you would use as your own
Sure.
business, but they'd be able to see all of that's one of the cool things, that all of our agency bills, the insurance bills, um, Mize fee bills, everything that we get gets scanned into our bill pay. And so if you're the treasurer of a co-op, let's say that once or twice a month, I'm going to email you or text you
Hmm.
and say, hey, Mark, there's several bills out there to pay, or we've got to pay a production bill, by next Friday because the agency asked us to let you know.
Hmm.
And so you'll log on whenever you get a chance to, and you'll approve everything, click submit, and then I get an automatic message that says, hey, Mark's approved all of these. Another one of my responsibilities is to make sure that we have cash to pay all of those. So let's say you're going on vacation to Hawaii for 2 weeks,
I wish I was.
and that I need you to go ahead and approve bills because we want to make sure and get the agency paid on time.
Hmm.
Then you would go ahead and approve all of those, and I'm going to take the responsibility to make sure that we have the cash flow for that, because it might be mid-month cycle where we're waiting for the draft to be posted for the collection of all of those funds
Hmm.
from the operators that month. That's really, well, one of the primary things that we do is help manage cash flow
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, no cash, can't pay the bills.
That's right. And even though there is a 5 million or $20 million budget at the beginning of the year, we don't have all that cash
Right.
at the beginning of the
Hmm.
year. To the agency side, they are um, spending the first 2 quarters of the year getting the production together and getting everything ready to have ready for the rest of the year. And so they need the funds to help
Hmm.
pay their vendors and that kind of thing. So we're managing cash flow on the front side and the back side and
What
everywhere in
happens? What
between.
happens when there's a conflict between cash and expenses?
We try to do the best that we can and
Yeah.
manage, usually just, I think the best way is just communicating with
Yeah.
the agency and finding out what for sure they need,
Hmm.
to um, continue doing everything that they need to be doing for the co-op,
Hmm.
and obviously insurance bills and everything else that we have to pay.
Have to
Then
pay.
we're keeping on top of all
That's
that.
great. What do clients find most valuable? For the co-ops, for the work we do. I know you go to some meetings out there and deal with them. So what do they kind of value the most with our relationship?
I think just having somebody who is really in touch with the day-to-day and financials and the overall picture, just kind of everything about it. We aren't just somebody who's going to pay your bills and then dump numbers into a financial statement and say, here you go. I take a lot of time to review the budget, understand it, work with the agency, and make sure that things are coded correctly and work with them to reconcile. And I think that is appreciated on the co-op side,
Hmm.
for the officers, where they know that we're going the extra length to make sure that things are coded correctly, instead of having a budget variance of maybe there wasn't a budget for something, but yet there's a $20,000 expense. Well,
Hmm.
somebody's gonna have to explain that at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and I want to look at that and make sure, figure out where that's coming from, or maybe there was something that changed reallocation during the middle of the year.
I think with a lot of what we do here at Mize is like that partnership, right? So we're not just an accountant doing work.
Right.
You're really their partner in their business
Right.
to help run these things, because it's got to. Probably people don't know how important these things are. I mean, advertising and marketing is what helps drive their revenue.
Sure, right. And every time that you think something is the same, something's going to change one way or the other. So I enjoy going to planning meetings, which is kind of this time of year, where they start planning how they're spending their budget for the next year.
Hmm.
And by going to some of those meetings, I hear um, talk of, a new initiative or some new incentive or something. And so that just makes me start thinking, okay, financially, how are we going to cover that, or at what time of the year, and who are we paying, and do we have a W-9? I'm sure
Hmm.
people are tired of me talking about W-9s, but
It's important.
it is. So, and getting to see faces instead of just email names
Yeah.
of people, I absolutely love that part of it. Getting to engage people, and if they ever have questions about what services Mize happens to offer, for them, I'd be happy to share that information. But I treat everybody the same, whether they're a client or not, and I just enjoy
Yeah.
getting to have that back and
That's
forth.
great.
And
You may have just answered my question. I was like, what do you love about the work? You've been doing it for 13 years. Like, what do you love most about this work? Obviously, you're passionate about it. So is it that? Is it the relationship? So
for sure, and there's no 2 days ever the same. I mean, there might be. I used to call Tuesdays Treasure Tuesdays, because it seems like maybe Mondays you get into the office, you kind of start getting geared up, and then by Tuesday I start getting phone calls and people are asking different questions, whatever. So it's just kind of funny that those seem to be the days.
yeah, sounds like fun work. Actually, I learned a whole lot more than I knew about this. I've known you for a while, and
Oh, there you
learn
go.
about this. So I appreciate everything today. Thank you for stopping by and sharing all
Yes.
this information.
You bet.
If anybody is interested in learning more, or want to talk to Diana, you can do a couple ways. You can send an email to the Mize Breakroom at MizeCPAs.com. Of course, you can reach out to Diana or myself, and we'll make sure that we follow up with you. And again, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, you bet. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Mize Breakroom. If you watch this episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe so you never miss another episode. You can find the Mize Breakroom anywhere you can find podcasts. If you like what you heard, please rate and review the podcast 5 stars. Looking for more information? You can find us on most social media platforms at Mize CPAs. Thanks for listening, and see you next time in the Breakroom. The Mize Breakroom is produced by Mize CPAs and hosted by Marc Swearengin. Mize CPAs is not a law firm and does not provide legal advice. The information shared in this podcast is for general information purposes only and is not intended to constitute legal or technical accounting, tax, consulting, and/or professional advice that may apply to your specific business. The listener is encouraged to consult counsel and/or their accountant before making decisions or taking any action concerning the matters in this communication to address the recipient's particular facts, circumstances, position, business considerations, or other unique relevant matters, as well as to evaluate any applicable federal, state, or local laws.